Sustainability, economic, social, and environmental. All three, all the time. That's the future of successful destinations. So where to start? Well, actions speak louder than words. As destinations worldwide consider their role and function regarding sustainability, Panama took a bold step forward in October by rebranding around a sustainable master plan based on the nexus of tourism, conservation, and research that was recognized as truly innovative by UNESCO. Sustainability, regeneration, and conservation are not just cool buzzwords or a hot positioning statement for Panama. The journey to a comprehensive, sustainable tourism strategy and brand began decades ago in Panama's Ministry of Environment and the Panama Tourism Authority, ATP. Let's be clear here. Panama faces the same challenges that almost all of us face or have faced at some time or another. It has an abundance of resources, but scarcity of online bookable products. Lodging is unbalanced territorially, with 57% of the rooms in the country's capital city. Hotel occupancy rates are worryingly low at 45% and in decline. And it has an understandable history of disorderly development based on a lack of defined standards and plans. Sound familiar? It could be any of us. In that context, Panama's sustainability rebrand is not just an addition to the plan or a series of lofty proclamations, but it is a key tool in creating ongoing social, economic, and environmental regeneration and growth. How so, you may ask? Well, realizing success for the Panamanian sustainability model will rely heavily on engaging and attracting travelers who not only rise to the sustainability challenge, but also commit to helping Panama achieve that by leaving legacy value on the ground in the country for stakeholders and citizens alike. Sharing Panama with the world, engaging travelers who share those values, and using tourism as a force for good falls to my friend and peer, Woodrow Oldford. A fellow Canadian and one of the best marketing philosopher practitioners I've ever worked with. Woodrow is the Chief Marketing Officer at Promtur Panama. He is the former VP of Global Marketing at Banff Lake Louise Tourism in Canada, and before that, the Head of Creative Services and Digital Operations at the international airline WestJet. Woodrow, it's great to see you. How are you? Where are you? What's it like?
Hey, thank you, David, for having me here. I am living in Panama City in the area called Casco Antiguo, also called Casco Viejo, or just Casco if you live here. It's pretty awesome. If you check the weather, you'll see a cloud with a lightning bolt. But what that means, it's sunny all day, and at least an hour in the day, because it's rainy season, we'll have a downpour, and then it'll be sunny again. So it's pretty awesome. And I live in a UNESCO World Heritage town. Even this wall behind me is protected by UNESCO. That's a Calicanto wall, and most of the buildings in this area are built from Calicanto in the 1600s.
Very
so pretty
cool.
cool. Very cool place.
Very cool place, and it's great to see you. It's been more than a year now, I think, since last time. You were in the land of the ice and snow before that, and I think
That's right.
we were probably on our way back from, I don't know if it was St. Louis or somewhere. Anyway,
I think it was St. Louis. Yeah.
All right. I know Woodrow Oldford, and I know him to be a great marketer, but I also know him to be a marketer who's utterly committed to authenticity. And when I read the sort of early news on the Panamanian new brand and positioning, I was excited because I know that behind this sustainability brand, behind the sustainability promise, is real traction. And I know you, and I know how hard you've gone at this. Talk to me about the real sustainable position, because it's not a brand idea. It's not an idea cooked up in an agency office. It's a real national initiative, isn't it?
It is. It definitely is. And so you had mentioned about the TCR strategy. That's the balance between tourism, conservation, and research, with tourism being able to contribute to the economy, which then generates revenues that then contribute to conservation and research. That becomes a cycle to be able to create a sustainable destination. That's embedded inside of a larger plan that did research on our destination to understand where we needed development and how to build development in a sustainable way. We'll give that credit to our tourism minister, Ivan Edskilson. He had a vision that he wanted Panama to be recognized as a world-class sustainable destination. And then from there, we took out the idea of a brand vision for Panama. And that brand vision was to take the Panamanian and build a brand that was sustainable and valuable and put the Panamanian and the visitor at the center. So the Panamanians had to be proud and the visitor had to love in order for us to get there. And so through that, we created a sustainable and loving brand, and already we're getting lots of accolades from the Panamanians. So not a lot of people know about us yet, but the Panamanians are proud, so I made that part right. But the idea was that if we made Panamanians proud of the brand, whether they knew there was a brand or not a brand, no matter what visitor came and visited, it would be so authentic that the Panamanian would not be able to help themselves but deliver on the brand promise.
I love the authenticity angle, but I want to drill in more to the sustainability side for a minute here, because going back to what we opened with, it's not an idea, gee, we'd like to be sustainable. This is more like an absolutely hyper-focused target on being sustainable, on recreating tourism in Panama in a way that enriches the life of locals and visitors at the same time. Talk to me about that process. And I know you've seen pockets of it around the world elsewhere, and we see some great work in Canada with our friends in Victoria. But talk to me about that hyper focus on sustainability and how it came to bear, how the industry evolved from sort of a, it almost fell into tourism in some sense, and then evolved to a point where it could do more. But now it's time to shift that, isn't it?
It is. And so actually, Panama hasn't really had a focus on tourism. Tourism has happened here, but it's mostly been because visitors have come for business, or they happen to be in Costa Rica or Colombia. We have a hub here from Copa, and so people would transit through. So tourism has just been something that's been underlying. With the tourism master plan, the goal was to build awareness of Panama, and of course, in the sustainable manner, be competitive against our tourism sector, looking to decentralize tourism because it was all in the city, because that's where our airport is. But then also have a goal of making tourism policy state policy, so that it is not just something that sits on the side and happens over here, but it is actually state policy and it's rooted in that master plan. And so with that, we were able to say, I believe in this plan, I believe in sustainable tourism, and I believe that the world has changed, and that actually the desire for sustainable tourism is greater than it's ever been. When people were staying at home and understanding how nature came back into their cities, they immediately realized they had an impact on the planet. And so being in Panama is kind of a perfect destination in that it's starting from scratch. It's a blank slate, and we can define what tourism should be, and try and avoid the challenges and the problems that were created in other destinations. And any destination is not going to be perfect, but at least we have a guiding light. We have a plan, and we know what others have done wrong. And so this is about building something from scratch, new, and really developing this in a sustainable way.
That sustainability, how do you capture that in the brand promise? And that brand, as you mentioned just when we started, it's got a forward focus out to the world, but it's also got a reflection back to the people. What's at the core of that brand?
So the core of the brand is really at the heart. The heart of it is the discerning traveler. So we've identified who a discerning traveler is, what their values are. The values are really built around wanting to make a difference. When they travel, they make a difference with their wallet. They're open to having a destination that doesn't have the infrastructure, and so there's challenges behind that. So instead of doing a brand around sustainability and telling sustainable stories, and we're a sustainable destination, what we're doing is we're saying we want the right people here with the right values. So sustainability is the outcome of the visitor being here, as opposed to the story that we're striving for, that we're trying to tell people, and then trying to change their behavior so they act in a sustainable way. The key is the discerning traveler and having what they are looking for, and then reaching out to them. And so we have a brand promise of radiating with life, and radiating with life, like Panama is full of stimulation. And when you hear this is, our tourism is really about stimulation, not relaxation. Panama is not a relaxing place. It's really active. It's loud. There's a lot of music. There's a lot of there's a lot going on here. We have an abundance of so much. So with that radiating of life, it's about that outward energy. That's a burst of energy that's coming from Panama, and it's about attracting people to that, who are the right people, who then sustainability becomes the problem, becomes the outcome.
So Promtur works with the Tourism Authority of Panama, or as it's known in Panama, the ATP. Between you, you are marshaling these resources on the distribution side. You've got Promtur. On the working at the grassroots level, you've got the ATP. I imagine that line's pretty blurry sometimes. How do you empower the local stakeholder? How do you get their story to the point where you can share it and attract that traveler who's looking, literally, as you said, to get out of the city, so to speak?
So the local stakeholder engagement happens on the ATP side. They also do the content development, or at least the prioritization of that content. And then that's where we work together to be able to tell that authentic story. And so it's not us going in and trying to figure out the story. The ATP has already started that community engagement and community involvement. And then together we create the stories to be able to be told. And so that right now is really at its grassroots. I've been here for a year. We've had an agency for 7 months. We've now got our branding. And so that is still in its infancy, but it's really about gaining connection through the ATP, because they already have a relationship, to be able to generate those stories and understand what it is that the community has to offer and what they want to offer. Because we may think it's one thing, but the community thinks it's other. So we need to make sure that we're aligned with the community, and we do that as a tri-group.
In the big scheme of things, you've got partnerships at the high levels with government. You've built a plan that's based on a sustainability plan that literally predates even your arrival by almost a decade. So it's got a solid foundation. There's lots of plans that get made and don't get executed. It's exciting to see Promtur playing a role in executing the sustainability part of that plan. Tell me, from a brand perspective, what it looks like to the rest of the world now as Panama emerges. What's the story? How's it going to reach us? Talk about those channels, because when you talk about the differentiating traveler, where are they? Who are they? What's it like?
So there's a couple of things in there. And so how it comes to life like pretty much any other marketing plan. We're hyper focused on the discerning traveler. That discerning traveler, we've done research. We understand what source markets they're in and where we have access to those source markets. And then we also understand where they exist, where we don't currently have marketing or direct access. So with that, with the brand, you're going to see Live for More. Live for More is the rally cry. So it actually has, everybody's calling it a tagline because they don't really understand that it truly comes with a lot of meaning. Live for More it has 3 meanings. And one is for the Panamanian, because the Panamanians are always striving for more. They're pushing for progress, and they're trying to do their best. Panama has an abundance of activities and things that people have no idea. And it is so incredible here and that's why I say it's like sensory stimulation. It's overload, because there's so much to do here. And so Live for More speaks to that abundance. And then Live for More also speaks directly to the discerning traveler, because the discerning traveler that we've identified is living for self-discovery and self-improvement. And so we're calling them to do that here. And then there's 3 segments of the discerning traveler. Ones that travel to discover and learn themselves, about themselves. Others that want to learn about the cultures and others through living history. And then there's others that want to travel and understand the world better because of their travel. And because we have so many different cultures here, there's a lot here for those each of those segments to be able to experience.
Do you think the consumer is aware of that nexus between traveling and conservation now? Do you think it's been heightened in the COVID situation?
Absolutely. We looked at a number of global trends, and the global trend of moving to digital and digital nomads, um, and communities jumping from non-technical to being able to swipe a credit card at a roadside stand that is selling fruit, like digital ability, and then have it delivered to the appropriate person in Costco. So right now, I order all of my groceries and all of my food, and any restaurant or whatever I order, and it comes to my door. Like, that's just insane how quickly we've moved to a digital world. So there's those trends. There's trends around DMOs needing to be the authority to be able to understand what are COVID restrictions, how do you get into the country, how do you get around, am I allowed to go home, those types of things. And then regenerative travel is another trend that, when we were looking at this trend, this is actually what the plan, we call it the Sustainable Tourism Master Plan. But sustainability before COVID was also considered ecotourism, mostly ecotourism, and we're not ecotourism. It's about the sustainability.
I'll touch on that with you. I do believe that yes, sustainability pre-COVID certainly defined one leg of tourism. The other ones would be, engagement with local communities, serving citizens. I think all of that's been rolled up, as you say, under the word sustainability now. It's not simply the eco piece. It's, hey, it can be eco, but if it doesn't benefit the citizen or if lives aren't enriched by it, then it's not sustainable. It can be eco and it can enrich the lives of citizens, but if you have an inequitable society, then it's not sustainable. So I totally agree with you on that front. I think as you're working on your sustainable brand promise, it also took on so much more meaning at the same time, which was completely congruent with where you were going.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And the interesting thing about our brand promise is not about sustainability. We're looking for sustainability be the outcome. And a lot of people are still talking about we're sustainable, we're aiming for sustainability, we're trying to change behavior. We're in a very different place here where it's not trying to change this, it's looking to the future and trying to have it as an outcome as opposed to an output. And so I think that's the big difference between what we're doing here in Panama and what others are doing.
Basically, you don't get people to be more sustainable by just harping on about being sustainable. You do things that engender sustainable activity in an ongoing way.
Exactly,
Or you talk
exactly.
about things that get them to behave. Yes.
Exactly. And I'm very fortunate and maybe hamstringed at the same time, but very fortunate that built into the Sustainable Tourism Master Plan, it very clearly states this is not about volume. This is really about the value of the visitor and increasing that value. And in order to increase that value, it's really about finding the right people. It's about the length of stay and the activities and the spend that they have in the destination, and really starting to focus on that and making sure that volume is not at the heart of everything. Because when you have volume at the heart of everything, it comes with unintended consequences. You might be looking for volume of the right visitor, but if you just go out after volume and that's what you measure, you end up getting volume and you don't get the right visitor. And so I'm fortunate in that way.
Well, and I come back to your commitment to this plan, and I come back to the minister's commitment, in the best way possible. He drafted the plan, and so to speak, or under his pen. It's going to be hard not to just jump at the idea of economic recovery by more, and it's going to take a real steady hand to do that. But again, the content that you're using to reach out to the world, in its authenticity, speaks to that, doesn't it?
It does, or it will. So again, because we've created this in such a short period of time, I believe that the message that we have out there right now is really about the things that will attract that discerning traveler. This is really just the beginning of Live for More. And when we get into connecting to our cultural heritage, our blue heritage, and our green heritage, and we connect that Live for More aspect and the sustainability aspect, and really about connecting the brand promise about radiating with life, all of those pieces come together and push us towards sustainability, and it's not something that we have to do alone by marketing. It's something that the visitor itself, when they come here, actually push us further forward than we could do on our own.
And the impetus for all of this comes from a thoughtful position of improving the lives of the people who live in Panama and sharing it with the world. I mean, at its very base level, tourism's wonderful, gardens are wonderful, but in the end, we're talking about a society that wants to harness tourism to be the best society it can be, to tell its authentic past, to go forward, and to share that with the world. Is that a
That
fair statement?
I would say that's a 100% fair statement. When people think of Central America, they think of it very much in the same light. It's very, not modern, and there's not a whole lot to do except for go and lie on a beach and maybe surf. And here in Panama, we have a super modern city. And then on the other side of the coin, we have a lot of wealth. And on the other side of the coin, we have poverty. And tourism is a mechanism to create jobs. It helps us fight poverty. It helps us fight inequality. And doing that in a sustainable way helps then, when the money is spent in a community, helps that community then to grow and move on its own pace and in its authentic way. Panama is really great because, and I think I said this to you before, is that we're a living timeline. You have the antiquated, we have our indigenous cultures that are still living in their communities in the traditional ways that they always have. We've got our patrimonial routes. We've got our antiquity right behind me from the 1600s. We've had the Spaniards here. We've had the conquistadores, the pirates. All of that stuff can still be seen. We've still got the traditional dance. When you think of the traditional dress, the pollera, I still see women in the streets wearing the pollera, but yet we're in a super modern city. And then you can go to the pueblo and still have your sandals made right there on your feet. And so all of these things are so wonderful. We're that living timeline. And when the visitor comes here and spends their money in a community that is allowed to evolve in their own way, it will be accepted better by that community, and it will create a better product for people to come and visit in the future.
So in the past, Panama has been a lot of things to a lot of people. It's been a bank, a remote bank for the rich and who don't want to be famous, or the rich and famous as well. It's been it's got obviously the legacy of the canal. It's been a world-class city. It's been a lot of things to a lot of people. But one of the earliest things I heard you say in a Spanish interview, and I did get this one, albeit my Spanish is terrible, is we must brand it.
Mm-hmm.
Woodrow Oldford saying, we must brand it. Tell me what you meant by that.
So we have an abundance of things that you can find anywhere in the world. What makes this place different is that so if you go back to the Plan Maestro, or the tourism master plan, the positioning was the bridge of the world. Well, the bridge of the world is great because there's the window to whatever, the heartbeat of America. Oh, that's just an asset. But what we have is very different because we're the bridge of the world. When you look at the benefits of being the bridge of the world, it's actually where worlds converge. And when you have worlds converging, you end up with a very magical mix of things that are very different. And so when you think of the visiting culture, you end up with this really cool mix. When you think about our biodiversity, you end up with this really cool mix. And so this is the thing that we need to brand. And so our strategic positioning went from being the bridge of the world to where worlds converge, because every story that we tell now around what we have helps us talk about that magical mix and why it's so different and why it's so magical to come here and experience it. And to really experience it, it's full of energy. Here, our tourism is about stimulation. It's not about relaxation. And when you come here and you're stimulated like you can get stimulated in this country, you do radiate with life. And so that's why I say we need to brand this, because it's very different.
Well, and it's very different in the sense, even in the way that you want to brand it. You went back through the assets, and we've all worked in tourism for many, many years, and sort of been hit with the eat, play, stay, shop syndrome, which is sort of what you fall back on when you run out of ideas. you're talking about a very different Panama. It's not urban centric. It's authentic. It's looking at the history of those dancers and those peoples and that food, and it's going to rely on a future that really does push people out of the cities to experience a broader Panama, isn't it?
It is. It is. Now, of course, we still have the challenge that most of our hotels are in the city. But we're such a skinny little country. You can be in the Pacific and have breakfast, and you can be in the Caribbean in an hour and a half and have lunch, and then you can be at Fort Lorenzo or Portobello in any of the ruins and experience those destinations as well, and still be back in Panama City and have lunch in the old city. It's like, and we're such a mix. Like the city sits right next to the primary rainforest and a tropical jungle. It's like we have so much that you can actually access, even if you just came to the city and did day trips out. You can get into the canal, you can take a boat through the Gatineau Lake, and you can get up to an Embarra community, which you can usually only get to by boat. There's so much to do here, and it's really is fantastic.
So as you look around the world and you talked, you talked about Panama needing to be competitive, but we're also, I've never met an industry quite like tourism where leaders and visionaries share ideas and thoughts and ideas. There's so many places grappling now with the idea of sustainability in a very positive way. They're saying, hey, this obviously is our future. We want our place that we live to thrive because we recognize during pandemic it's less than thriving for sure. We want it to be sustainable, though. We want to incorporate those plans. These are things that take time and work. What do you have to share with our peers about that authentic journey and how to get there? And I say again, I will underline this. I know how thoughtfully you looked at the Panama strategy from top to tail to get to where you went. You have a history of political support for it in the country. What do you have to say to your peers around the world?
So when it comes to sustainability, it's not an easy journey, and you really need to do the analysis of your destination to be able to figure out what your path is. I think if you take the sustainable master plan that is online, access to anybody, and understand the journey that we went through in order to get there, pick up the TCR strategy that connects conservation and research and tourism and how it generates income into the economy. Look at those pieces and find ways that you can apply them in your own destination. And I would say we need to stop looking at tourism as competition. Of course, you need to look at your competition and say, who are people comparing to me when they're making their last decision? But that's really just more about how do you differentiate yourselves. But don't think of a destination as competition, because a visitor is not only going to visit one destination ever. That people want to see multiple things. And so if you don't look at them as competition, as in I got to get their visitor, you just need to stand out and make sure that you're authentic and you do it right and you attract the right visitor for you. For us, it's the viajero consciente who doesn't really care when they come to a destination if you're not fully baked, because we're not fully baked. We have hard time. Like you're in the city and you want to go to Boquete, or if you want to go to Bocas del Toro, it's a bit of a journey to try and figure out how you're going to get there. But when you get there, you're going to be so blown away. It's like, how did I know and not know that this place existed before? And so it's worth it. But that's for us. Find out who is right for you, who's going to create that sustainability for you, and we'll be able to, implement these things. You also have to really align yourselves, make sure that you're at the table for policy, make sure that you align yourselves with the government so that everybody is fighting for the same thing. If you have nobody fighting for the same thing and everybody's going in different directions, then I would say the first thing you need to do is create a tribe of people who really believe in this and build momentum. And so if you're starting from nothing, build momentum. If you're starting from where I was in the middle, and with a blank slate, I think I really have one of those opportunities that's been so unique that I don't know if it'll ever come up again. It's really about find out what's authentic for you, who's the authentic consumer that you want to come, and so that you're not trying to change behavior, that you're actually bringing the right people in with the right behaviors. If you have to back out of over tourism, That's something that I'm not familiar with, except for at Banff and Lake Louise Tourism, when we had 300 people show up at a parking lot and everybody said we had over tourism. Um, um, Backing that out is a little harder, and it's about behavior change.
And I will share with you, our peers who talk to me on the other side of that ledgers from places that are dealing with over tourism and how they want to change. Woodrow, it's the same principles they espouse, which is it has to be strategy, not tactics. It has to have a long focus, and the buy-in along the way is essential. So, I talk to people again. I have a hard time defining marketers because, they all appear the same. They're not. Great marketers engage communities, shape demand, see those multiple publics and engage them. And I would say whether you're an emerging destination in South America, that really excites me with the fact that you can actually leapfrog some of the destination development of the last 4 decades, or whether you're a destination in Europe that's paring back for a more discerning client to create a more discerning clientele or traveler. The principles are the same for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And always start with strategy and then be authentic. Just really be authentic.
I think those are the best words to end on. It's a great pleasure to see you. We
Great
should
to
see
see
you
you
more.
again.
There's no excuse not to see you in a virtual world. I don't know why it's been so long.
Well, there's actually no excuse for you not to come down, because if you're double vaccinated, you just come on in. If you're not, then you just get a PCR test 72 hours before. Come on in and enjoy. Wear your mask everywhere, outdoors, indoors, whatever. But you can still have a great time here wearing a mask. So, there's no reason.
Woodrow, it's great to see you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.